We are Top Model Uganda, the leading modeling competition. We are Top Model Uganda, the leading modeling competition.
Marse, pray for us so that we can start this. Okay? Thank you, Marcel. Actually, I don't have much words to say. I don't have much words to say, but I think it's high time we sit down, we humble ourselves, we listen to what they are going to tell us. I'm quite sure we are going to go home when we have been changed. I know. Let's listen to whatever is going to be told to us. Sorry. Sir, I think you can take over.
Thank you. Dr. Kiggundu Spire is my name. I'm sure some of you have seen me somewhere or followed me somewhere, because this is not my first platform to talk to the youth. I'm very glad and privileged to be here, especially talking to beautiful young women and handsome men. I think that is the right concept, isn't it? When I say top model, I want to believe that this is a contest that looks for beauty in all its ways, isn't it? And me being a medical doctor, I'm taught that beauty is not just about the body, but more important, it's about the mind, isn't it? The all-round knowledge about issues, and I'm sure this is what the judges will be looking for at the end of the day. So I come here as a gynecologist, and I'm tasked to talk to you about health-related sexual issues. This is usually a very interactive topic. I usually don't want to be a lecturer. I want to interact, because I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, a lot of contributions to this issue. Every one of you has gone through a certain phase of life. I don't know whether the contest looks at women of a certain age group, does it? I need to be advised. Am I talking to women above 18? That's all of you? Okay. Then let's give me a scope of my talk, because I don't want to stand here and appear out of range. So I work with Henrob Hospital, and Henrob Hospital is located at Zzana. It is a largely general hospital, but with special interest with women's affairs, fertility, minimal access surgery, and we look a lot into adolescent and youth health issues. So when I was invited to give this kind of talk, I felt excited to meet people like you who are going to be ambassadors, isn't it? Because being a model means you're an ambassador to something. There's something you are selling out there, okay? It's not really just about the overlook or the outlook, but you must be able to sell something to your peers. And I hope that health-related issues are some of the things you have to be very, really well conversant with. So, as I said, feel free to note down whatever you can, and at the end of the session, we can interact. You can ask questions. I'll be very grateful to answer to the best of my knowledge. Today, I had 3 major objectives. One of them was to talk about the normal woman, the normal growth of a woman, and this includes the physical growth spurt, the menstrual cycle and its related problems. And then from this normal, we shall be able to understand the abnormal, because usually most of the problems and issues arise from that area. Then we shall talk about the abnormals. What are the issues surrounding the menstrual cycle, the menstrual problems, weight issues, the female reproductive issues, especially the genital tract. And then lastly, but not least, we shall talk about the sexual health and related sexual issues affecting an adolescent woman. Of course, in there we shall discuss the safe sexual practices and issues surrounding the controversies. So I expect, I've already got some questions from the audience as I came, but I expect more questions and more interaction from you to make this quite useful. What is the normal? I think that is the question I'd begin with. What is the normal? Because the reason I ask the age is because I know that all women I'm talking to in this room have crossed what we call menarche. Has any one of you heard about the word menarche? Yes? Yes, no? Feel free to talk. It's an interactive session. Anyone knows what menarche is? There is menarche, there is adrenarche. I don't want to leave out the guys, the gentlemen. Yes, I know 80% of the talk is ladies, but I also want to appear inclusive. There is menarche, there is adrenarche. Menarche means the age at which a girl child starts to be called a woman. And that is the first menstrual cycle. If anyone here above 18 has not experienced the first menstrual cycle, what we call menarche, then they should come and visit me. Because I have some work to do there. That becomes abnormal. Okay? So there is a journey to a woman, there is a journey to a man. Of course, the journey of a woman is met with a lot of challenges and a lot of adventures, including a more vulnerable period, and that is the period we focus on. That period is the period from menarche up to menopause. That means a woman has a journey, okay? When you're a child, we say you are pre-menarche, okay? When you reach about 12 years, 15 and above, we expect that your body undergoes some sort of changes. And some of these changes include the growth and development of the brain, attaining what we call critical weight. When a woman attains between 42 and 45 kilos, is there anyone here under 42 kilos? When a woman attains 42 kilos, there is a trigger in the brain that will release hormones that are now supposed to control the ovaries. So the ovaries will start producing some little eggs which will grow, produce hormones. The best hormone here we talk about is usually estrogen. Then estrogen will start stimulating the growth of every aspect of the woman, right from the brain up to the physical. You start seeing a woman going through a special growth spurt. For us, we call it a growth spurt. From being a child, then you'll see breasts coming on, the hips growing, skin fat, skin becomes lighter, they appear more beautiful and attractive. To the males, that's the design. That's God design. That at that age, a woman is supposed to appear more attractive. To the males. With animals, yes, with animals, we are animals, but it's a special type of animal. With the animals like the dogs, they also go through this kind of growth spurt. But what happens is that they produce a special hormone like your estrogen. And this is what we call pheromone. Then they start to smell nicer to the male dogs. And that is why you see them having a special behavior. In Uganda, we call it a gobe. You've seen those dogs. So unlike humans, Dogs do not have intercourse for leisure. They have, not just dogs, but most of the animals, they have intercourse for procreation. So their cycle is designed that way. Why did I bring it out? It is the same growth spurt that a human being has. And at menarche, there is a lot of estrogen, and estrogen works on your physique, the way you look, the way you put on weight. You start growing secondary sexual characteristics. This includes, in males, it's the musculature. The growth of the body changes, very rapid. The voice changes. You start growing secondary sexual issues like pubic hair. The genitals starts to grow larger. And all this is in waiting for procreation, isn't it? Now, the problem is that when your body is going through this kind of rush, call it the rush hour of life, unfortunately, this is a time when a woman and a young man is at a lot of risk. And if you do not manage these hormones quite well, it is likely that you might end up with a few problems here and there, as we shall discuss later. So, what does estrogen do to the genital tract? Maybe what I should tell you that this hormone, estrogen, is what makes you a woman. The hormone testosterone is what makes us men. They have similarities, but testosterone comes along as more aggressive. That is why you see young men around this time, they like fighting, they like causing trouble, uncontrollable, they feel they're on the top of the world. They feel so good about themselves, uncontrollable, they run out of homes because of testosterone. Estrogen is a rather calm hormone. It makes a woman, it's supposed to make a woman a little bit more, what is the word? Submissive? Though I want to disagree with that. It's not supposed to be submissive. Attractive. So it gives you everything from the brain to your appearance, the intelligence, and to the reproductive organs. They go through a phase of development. The uterus becomes larger. I said the uterus goes hand in hand with the breasts because both of these are reproductive organs. The ovaries start releasing what you call eggs. In a male, the spermatogenesis process, the testes will start producing sperms. They start getting wet dreams. All this is in readiness for reproduction. So the way the system is designed at 12 at menarche and above is for reproduction, isn't it? But being humans, not like dogs, we have a certain level of control, and we can decide when and how to manage our reproductive lives, isn't it? You can decide to have children at 15. You can also decide to have children at 30, depending on your plans, isn't it? I usually want to focus a lot on the menstrual cycle. Men don't have a menstrual cycle, but they have their own issues. We have our own issues. For the fact that women have a menstrual cycle, it makes them very vulnerable. very vulnerable to disease, very vulnerable to the eventualities of life. Everyone is running after them because they have this hormone I talked about. The hormone that is so attractive to the other side. So menstruation is considered normal if, one, it's predictable. You should be able to predict as a woman that my cycle is 28 days, 35 days, or the extreme 42 days. So that means every one of you has a different cycle. Some of them it's a short cycle, others it's a moderate cycle, and then you have outliers where the cycle is longer, about 41 days. It's all a cycle, a menstrual cycle. But you as a woman have to understand your cycle. Because if you do not understand your cycle, it becomes difficult to manage your cycle. Okay? That is one. Number two, a normal cycle should have a normal flow. Ideally, a woman should have about 3 to 7 days of what we call a normal flow. If you find your flow so less than 3 days or more than 7 days, then it might not be normal. Okay? The other aspect is that the flow should not be extremely uncomfortable. Why do women have menstrual pain? Can anyone guess? Everyone has some sort of cramps. If you don't have any cramps, then I would imagine that you're a little bit of a superhuman. Does anyone here doesn't have cramps during their menses? Yeah? Nothing? She's lucky. Does anyone here have any cramps? Just help me put up your hands. I'm not a politician. We're not voting, but I'm just. No. Usually in your normal cycle. Can I say, is that the majority or? Okay. Does anyone here have severe cramps that make you uncomfortable to the point that you need to take some medication to go through this phase? Does anyone here have extreme discomfort that you need to be admitted? You go through a range of things like vomiting, diarrhea. Sometimes they need to give you injections in order to, that is what we call so severe that it compromises your quality of life. You can't do anything. You can't concentrate in school. You can't have a peaceful sleep. Does anyone have something like that? Yeah? Okay. So that means we have all the extremes. So a normal period should not be so discomforting to the level that it disorganizes your quality of life. The uterus ideally is supposed to contract, okay, to release, to shed off. Because usually what happens in the normal menstrual flow, and you all women must understand this, including men who are going to be husbands in future, that a woman's uterus is designed for reproduction. So that means there's a special layer that grows this thick. And why does it grow? Because the eggs that grow from the beginning of your cycle produce hormones that grow the layer of your uterus to a certain level, waiting for a baby to get there. If the baby doesn't get there, that's a pregnancy, the layer will all shed off. And that is what you see as menstrual flow. It is not the eggs that are, I'm sure a bigger majority of you thought they were eggs. I get this question quite a lot. It is not the eggs. The eggs are microscopic. You cannot see them with your eye. If I put a sperm here and over here, you won't be able to see them with the naked eye. They are so little and minute. So it is the layer of the uterus that, and it has to keep on doing that every month. Growing, shedding until you decide to give it a pause by becoming pregnant. So because the layer is so thick, the uterus has to contract to open the cervix to allow you to flow. Some of you have moderate flow, others have significant flow. But that is why you get cramps. That is the explanation. So if you find yourself having severe cramps that compromise your quality of life in any way, please do not take it for granted. Why am I saying this? I'm honored to have this platform. I usually want to go to schools and discuss this issue with the girls so that they do not come to us when it is too late. Because that's what happens. I was in Nairobi about 3 days ago on a topic called endometriosis. Has anyone heard that? Endometriosis? Endometriosis? So I want you to become ambassadors for endometriosis. Write that word down, endometriosis. Oba chiwandika mu Luganda, oba chiwandika mu Luteso. I don't mind. Endometriosis. I'm not going to spell it. I know, guys, you're clever. You look it up. But endometriosis. Now, endometriosis means, first of all, the inner layer of the uterus is called endometrium. Isn't it? That's where the word comes from, endometrium. At least you've heard of that. You guys are supposed to be clever. You're supposed to be intelligent. Isn't it? When a woman contracts a lot, when they have a lot of cramps that are taken for granted, cycle after cycle, month after month, years after years, what happens is some blood will flow ahead, the rest of the blood will keep flowing backwards. So we call that retrograde flow. Retrograde flow or retrograde menstruation means you are menstruating partly backwards into your abdomen through your tubes, because the tubes are open. Okay? Sometimes I tell people that the design of the woman reproductive system had some mistakes. Don't quote me. Don't tell God I said that. Why? Because it is an open system. Unlike men. The design of a woman is a what? An open system to the environment. Whatever gets in down will end up in your abdomen. So she said, uniquely designed. Of course, there's a reason. God doesn't make mistakes. Yes. But in this context, so when you cramp, over time, this collection of blood inside your abdomen, which you can't see, eventually becomes a problem. And in that blood, there is a lot of chemicals that will cause a lot of inflammation. They cause a lot of I don't know the Uganda word for inflammation, but inflammation means things start boiling up and burning up. Every disease causes some sort of inflammation. So because there are chemicals in there, they start irritating nearby structures, the tubes, the ovaries, the intestine, the bladder, blah, blah, blah. And it keeps moving on to different areas, including the lungs, the brain. So I've heard of some women, when they menstruate, they get a nosebleed. When they menstruate, they bleed through the ears. When they menstruate, they get a red eye. Even the eyes menstruate. Sometimes even the brain menstruates. They get severe headache. So this is not a joke, it is a true story. So the conference I was talking to you about, that I went to, as an endometriosis surgeon, because I see a lot of this, I found a group of women, young women called endometriosis warriors. These are women who have battled the disease and somehow managed to live with it or come through it. Some of them have come through it with no uterus, no children, and no families. It can mess you up. How does it do that? It causes infertility. It causes agony. I saw a young girl who has gone through 8 surgeries until the uterus was removed. So I'm telling you this because in Nairobi they've decided to form an endometriosis association, and they target schools and role models and who will keep talking to the young girls that do not ignore anything called severe cramps. The grandmothers and the teachers and the matrons keep telling these girls, it's okay, we all cramp. But there's what we find in sick bays. It cannot even go to class during this time, isn't it? Some of them are sent to school. They miss classes because of cramps. And no one is there to know that this is a problem. It has to be addressed early so that you don't destroy their future. There are many ways these menstrual problems spoil your future. One of them, of course, you miss class. You cannot be attentive. There is no partner that will bear this kind of havoc. So most of the girls are single. The families are broken. Marriages are broken because of. So for you who have got an opportunity to hear this, and I know that you interact with many youth, or you are going to, take this as part of your health message, that menstruation has issues. If it is not normal, 1, it is not a normal flow, it is severely painful, bleeding is a lot, sometimes you get intermenstrual bleeding, some of them bleed twice, or some of them miss periods completely. There are no periods. So all these are not normal. So a menstrual cycle of a woman for us tells us a lot of information. So if all is normal, predictable, normal flow, then we know that likely you are fertile. That's what it means. You have enough eggs to spend until you get into puberty, rather menopause. You're normal. Menstruation flows predictably, the eggs are there. Unfortunately, a woman has a lifespan, a reproductive lifespan, isn't it? Males do, but it's a little late. But a woman should have children between 18 years when the body is ready. And ready, I mean, at 18 years, estrogen has prepared you enough that the breasts are grown, ready to breastfeed. The bones are mature enough to push a baby. The brain is mature enough to cope with an infant and the stress of childbirth. But it is not wise for a woman to go beyond 34 without the first child. Okay? So as you go along with your ambassador work, and I know that when you model, you care a lot about your body. Isn't it? Yes, because it's true that this is what sells you. I've not seen anyone here, I think it is by selection criteria, that is above 70, 80 kilos. All of you are nicely slim and, you know. Now, for some reason, women will take long to give birth because they have to maintain. There is a thought that when you give birth, then your body, I disagree with it. It is a discipline. Okay? Haven't you seen models who have children? Yes, it's a discipline. So every woman should know that the normal reproductive cycle should be between 18 and 34. After 34, the eggs start to misbehave. The DNA is spoiled. Women get a lot of miscarriages. Pregnancies are difficult to get. You know, you should be mindful of that. The other thing I want to talk about is the issue of maintaining weight. Sometimes women are so desperate to achieve a certain level of weight to an extent that they start torturing themselves. Have you heard of a disease called anorexia nervosa? Yes? Sometimes we used to call it a model's disease. Anorexia nervosa. That women will starve themselves. Starvation. Some of them will start inducing vomiting. And then it becomes a mental problem. Actually, it is designed as a psychiatric problem. In this context, or in this pursuit of attaining then you start to compromise the normal function, because the normal function of the body is that it must have all the necessary nutrients to survive. Okay? You remember what I said, that to get menarche or to menstruate, there has to be a critical weight. So if you go below that critical weight, usually 42, then your periods will stop. So you see it in athletes, those very good women athletes, they never menstruate. Yes. Because there's a physiological way of shutting down that system. So you don't want that to happen. You can strike a balance by having some sort of discipline. Now, I think I've talked so much about menstrual cycle. If you have any questions around that, let me know. Now, I want to talk about something else that is quite common when it comes to my office. That is the issue of vaginal discharge. Vaginal discharge. What we consider as the normal vaginal secretion. so bothered about it that they have taken all the medication. So the normal vaginal discharge is part and parcel of what estrogen does for the woman's body, is it? We shall talk so much about this hormone estrogen, because it designs the entire woman. Testosterone for the men. Because women have a cycle and the cycle responsible for the reason why they visit us. Thank you. It's the reason why I wanted to focus there. Estrogen usually will stimulate a woman's glands in the vagina and a number of glands there that are meant to produce mucus. The genital of a woman has to be lubricated to facilitate sexual intercourse, isn't it? And to also facilitate the sperms to move swiftly, swim well, cover that all distance to reach the tubes because of that mucus. But the mucus is governed by the different stages of your cycle. So in the first phase of your cycle, the mucus is a bit thick. In the middle phase of the cycle, when we expect that you're ovulating, the mucus is very thin, watery, it flows, it stains, because that is the time when pregnancy is supposed to be predictable. And there are changes of a woman. You know, they are more excitable, they are high, they yearn intercourse. It is equivalent to the other thing I talked about in animals. The pheromone. They look for the males. They can even fight for sex. Yes, they can. So, at this time, the mucus seems to be much, seems to be clear, seems to be, And then in the last phase of the cycle, that lasts for about 4 days, 4 to 5 days. Then the longer phase of the cycle between ovulation and when you will have your periods again, the mucus starts getting thick. Becomes getting thick. Why? Because it assumes that if you have planted sperms up there and there is a pregnancy coming, it has to hold it. That's why it becomes thick. It will close the cervix. No one else gets through here, including infection. That is God's design. It's not my design. So a lot of women do not know what is normal and what is not normal. They will come to you and say, I'm having this vaginal discharge. I have STDs. When you ask them what is going on, they will describe something normal. So what did they miss? They missed a talk like this. The reason why you need to know about it is because people are out there trying to treat everything normal. They'll give you antibiotics, they'll give you injections, they'll do all sorts of things. It's money consuming, but they're treating something normal. So what is not normal? What is not normal is if you continue getting an abnormal or a discharge of this description. One, it is plenty throughout the month. It is not cyclic. I said the other one is a bit cyclic. You can tell when it is thick, you can tell when it is a lot. This one is constantly voluminous. It is a lot. It stains your pants throughout the cycle. Two, it smells, changes smell. A normal vaginal discharge does not smell. An abnormal one will smell. It will smell like fish. It will smell like rotten eggs. then you know there is a problem here. 3, it itches. Irritation. It causes irritation. It starts to itch. They call it itchy. Every time you feel like scratching, you feel like, that's not normal. It changes color. If it is brownish, we think you're bleeding slowly. If it is greenish, we think you have trichomonas. If it is grayish, we think you have what we call bacterial vaginosis. So the color changes from the usual colorless to any of those descriptions, then that is not normal. And if you are sexually active, then you start getting what we call dyspareunia. Dyspareunia means pain on deep penetration. Then we know that your reproductive organs are now also involved. Every time the man shakes them around, they're painful. Yes, isn't it? And these men are not very easy. They think that when they have given you their little money, they have to punish you. And they have only one organ to punish a woman. So sometimes they misuse it. Am I lying? Aha. It's good they are honest. They don't know where to go. Do you? So you want me to teach you? Where is professional fees? You want me to teach you? Oh. So, if you see any of those things, you need to be concerned. Okay? So I don't want you to become victims of these mushrooming clinics, treating everything normal, calling it abnormal. You should know yourself. You should know what is normal and abnormal by that description. Largely, that is what I wanted to talk about as normal. Maybe, I don't know whether this is part of your scope. I mean, the genital tract as a sexual organ. Is it part of this scope? Am I supposed to be teaching you about? You don't know what she said. Yes, it is true that good intercourse is the reason why marriages survive, isn't it? And bad intercourse is the reason why marriages sometimes break and why people go out to look for what is good. And it is also true that a lot of women do not know their sexual organ, just like the men will come and abuse it because they don't know. And if you don't know and you cannot teach them, unfortunately, boys are designed to think that they know everything. And when we are doing sexual talks, they call the girls. You know the issue of Senga? They call the girls in a corner and they talk to them about, and then they will assume that the boys know. Unfortunately, the boys are supposed to marry the girls. And they don't know anything about a sexual organ of a woman. Isn't it? So I think that is unfair for society. So for the males, usually it is straightforward. The male has a penis. The penis is not, it is very emotional. It is very emotional. In a way that when it sees something nice, it connects with the brain, and this is truth. The connection with the brain and testosterone for a man is very special. When they see something nice, whether in dreams, blind reality, there is a connection. It will always respond. And the easy way of knowing that is check your man in the morning. If they are not having an erection in the morning, it's a problem. Why? Because testosterone is maximally, I think that's the word, produced in the morning. Early morning. Okay? So if your man is moody and they've had a bad day, just wait for them in the morning. Don't disturb them in the night. Testosterone is low. In the morning, that's when testosterone is what? So the imbalance is that for a woman, they need a lot of work because the estrogen connection between the brain and the genital organ is not that strong. They need to be put in order, isn't it? Now, I just want to tell you this, that a woman also has a penis. Don't they? Huh? Don't you have one? She doesn't have one. Don't you have one? How is that possible? I like the question. It is possible and it is true that one, when God created a woman, he gave them both male and female. Okay? The ovary is capable of producing both estrogen and testosterone. So every woman has a bit of male hormone. And when the male hormone is in plenty, a woman starts getting male-like features. They get a few beards here and there. They get hairy. And when all women get into menopause, 45, 55 and above, then the ovary predominantly starts to produce testosterone. So you become a bit of men. Isn't that nice? Sorry? No, they wouldn't have babies if they are. You mean in menopause? Or what? Or you're talking about the... Yeah, and the reason I'm saying it, that is a problem. It's supposed to be in moderation. A bit of testosterone, not that much to give you those characteristics. So if you find yourself having those characteristics, they call them male-like features, then you have to worry about your fertility. That said, I'm not saying every woman who walks around with excessive hair and beards here and there is a... No. There are solutions if we find out that you have excess testosterone and we measured it and we see that it is high, then we can suppress it. Okay? So, it is true that a woman has a penis. Yes. And the equivalent of it, in fact, for us, we anyway, I think the word you're used to is a clitoris. Isn't it? A clitoris is a vestigial penis. That's what it is. And it is the erectile organ of a woman. And even the muscles that are supposed to cause erection in a man have the same name as those muscles that are supposed to cause erection in a penis. And let me also tell you this. I know this gets uncomfortable every time I discuss this with women. There are women who come to my office and tell me, I've never gotten an erection. Never gotten an orgasm. 20 years in marriage. It's true that 50% of women get an orgasm. The rest don't. So I don't know. So every time you count 1, 2, 3, 4, she doesn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, she doesn't. It's true. So men need to know this. Huh? I'm not saying go out and look out for only those who can. But the clitoris has 800 nerves. The penis has 400 sensory erotic nerves. The clitoris has how many? Isn't that a beauty? So it is some sort of sexual gold. But you know what happens? Is that men pass it unnoticed. Isn't it? They don't know. So they just pass by and continue. So what God did, he put all the sensitive erotic organs of the woman on top for the men to see. The rest down there is supposed to be for procreation, giving birth. That's why I call it a birth canal. But that's what men like most, isn't it? They leave the sexual organ and they go for the birth canal. So you're going to tell them. You need to know that because unfortunately women find out this on YouTube, on WhatsApp, on the net, and no one bothers to tell the girl child this in school. No one bothers to tell those boys and those men that this is what it is. Where do you expect them to find out? Friends. Adventure. Call it adventure. And by the time you find out, maybe you are you're also lost in the adventure. Isn't it? Because there is what we call what is the word? It is called sexual. I don't want to call it sexual maturity, but it's like sexual experience. A man is supposed to develop some sort of sexual experience before they marry, just like a woman. But where do you expect them to get this sexual called experience? In their minds. They're supposed to know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, they get it through adventure. Isn't it? Before they discover, they have maybe had about 5, 6, 7, 10 women who are also quite the same, naive. And when they're unlucky and they land on one who has never experienced anything, then it becomes a what? A nightmare. So you as models, I've taken a bit of time to tell you what a woman's sexual reproductive organ is, what the uterus, the ovaries do, and I expect that you send the gospel. Maybe this should become part of your ambassador work. The menstrual cycle and its related problems, please keep talking about it and educate whoever is vulnerable, and that is the girl child. So having talked about all what I consider as normal, now we can talk about a few abnormals. So what are the common sexual health related problems? Yes, please. She has asked through you. Okay. Does that mean she's shy? Can I give a microphone to ask for herself? Yes?
My question was, you talked about the penis, so I wanted to know, is it the same reason why this pro woman
She's trying to bring out one of the things that I had in my discussion, what we call unusual. I don't want to call them the right or wrong. I call them unusual. So she's asking about why would some people want to go from what you consider as normal, and then they become, I think becoming a same-sex practitioner is